So I guess before we start this, I should probably make note of the whole PlayStation thing on an actual video instead of making a million community posts about it. So the problem with the PlayStation is that I think on the inside, one of the little thingies is broken, or it's just unplugged. Probably just a faulty connection, because it connects sometimes. But for the most part, I can't get any controller or device to connect to it at all. This is including stuff like, of course, the controller. But I've tried other people's controllers that I know for a fact work on their PlayStation, and it still won't connect. So I'm just kind of left here. I can't really do much about it. So, it is what it is. I think it's fine though, because it means I don't have any reason to try to get on games or anything. So I just I'm more productive when I'm like this too. I think it's worth it. But of course, onto the video itself. Sleep is one of those things that people almost always get wrong. And I see it everywhere too. I think like maybe 2 people I know right now do sleep correctly, or no. They get the right amount of hours, supposedly, just by going off of their word. But everyone seems to get the wrong amount of sleep. Like, all of my other friends do. And again, this is just going off of people's word and going off of what they say they get, not what they actually get, because there's probably a bunch of little details that I miss. Like, going by age group, teenagers are supposed to get way more. Teenagers are supposed to get like 8 to 10 hours of sleep, and that's just 13 to 17, I'm pretty sure. 13 to 17-year-olds are supposed to get 8 to 10, when you know for a fact, like everyone in high school, a lot of people in high school are getting 6 or 7. People are pulling all-nighters, like, on the regular. And then adults are also getting 6, when just another hour and a half could be just enough. And everyone's moping around, hardly even awake. But sleep is kind of weird to hack. I mean, how long does it even take to fall asleep after you lie down? Because with some people, they have insomnia, they have all these problems. They're still stimulated. And what's the difference in sleep between an adult, a senior, and a teenager? What even is rapid eye movement sleep? I'm going to direct you to the best source that I know for all of this. I'm going to put it in the description. It's Andrew Huberman's sleep video. It was one of the first things that he ever put on his podcast. And it's probably one of the best tools that anyone can use. I'm going to help explain to you some tools that I have learned, both from him and through experience. Keep in mind, I'm only going to go over things that the majority, if not everyone, can implement into their life right now, tonight, without any money. All of these tools that I've used have been incredibly simple and take mere minutes to accomplish or set up. I'm not exaggerating any of this, by the way. This is genuinely the easiest way to significantly improve your sleep, starting tonight. I'm also going to direct you. I repeat things in the script. I need to double check over the script. I gotta get better at this. But that's something that I can do throughout teenagehood. I can make as many mistakes as I want, and it makes very little impact. How fun. By far the biggest thing that I've found to maximize is definitely light exposure. It's probably the easiest, simplest, yet most effective way to hack your sleep right now. Because the human mind and body, when you think about it, were only ever built to handle 2 different light sources. The sun and some point along the human evolutionary timeline, firelight. Screens, lamps, basically any form of light that doesn't occur in nature can have disruptive effects on your sleep if you're not careful. Heavily simplified, your brain has a system for being awake and alert or asleep and drowsy. The number one factor that your brain uses to decide which one is the light in your environment. Dozens of years ago, the only way that your brain knew it was time to sleep is if it couldn't find the sun in the sky. Obviously, if it wasn't there, it was night, and that meant that there was hay that needed hitting. But now we have other forms of light, namely blue light from our screens and bulbs from our lamps. The way that you want to maximize light exposure is to ensure that when you need to be more awake, for example right after waking up, go out and just look in the general direction of the sun. If you're somehow unable to, use a window or artificial light for this. Although, I will warn you, these two things are not even half as effective. The sun, all you have to do is go look out in its general direction for 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how cloudy it is. And then that's it. That's all you need. And then you can go back inside if you even want. Of course, when it's nearing bedtime, the opposite is true. Remove all bright lights an hour or so before bedtime, and I would personally recommend that you remove all light, barring light from fire. Why fire specifically? Simply, the whole alertness thing doesn't get triggered by the specific light waves that come from fire. Again, we're built for fire. So when you see fire, your brain doesn't automatically associate it with the sun having risen. Because it's a very different source of light from the sun and screens and whatnot. There's no blue light in it whatsoever. So if you're doing work close to bedtime and you need a light, just try having a little bit of candlelight next to it. I haven't personally tried this, unfortunately, because I don't have any candles in here. But I do want to... There might be a candle somewhere in the storage. I do want to personally try this when I'm journaling late at night. Because I try to journal almost every day. And it's been helping a lot. If only I could maximize it perfectly in order to make journal like the perfect before bedtime thing. I think a lot could come from it. I think the most important thing that no one really does is that you need to have a proper plan for your sleep. From most sources I could find, it takes like 15 to 20 minutes after laying down before you fall asleep. And this is given that you have a relatively healthy, sort of sleep thing. I don't know what to call it. A relatively sort of healthy sleep life. Like, you lay down and you don't have insomnia that keeps you up. You're not laying down on your phone the whole time. 15 to 20 minutes after laying down and just sitting there and doing nothing before you fall asleep. Someone might talk about how they got the right amount of sleep and still feel tired, which I almost never believe. So at that point, I typically ask them what time they lie down and wake up, only to realize that all of that isn't even factored into the equation. In reality, they probably only got 7, maybe even 6, when I think they got 8. Because they'll lay there on their phone, they'll be like, I laid down at 10 o'clock and I woke up at 6 and I'm still tired. That should have been a full 8 hours. No, it's not. You need to lie down at about, I'd say 9:30, 9:45, and you need to not be looking at light that time, except for firelight, as I said. Firelight is the only thing you can be looking at, other than as close to pure darkness as you can get. And then you will fall asleep pretty soon after you lie down. Also, like with the light exposure thing from before, you want to maximize what you take into your mouth before going to bed. Turns out eating can be quite disruptive to your sleep, albeit it varies how disruptive it really is. A good format to follow is to try not to eat 3 hours before going to sleep. You're the only one that can really figure out what's best for you. If you can get away with eating 2 hours before bedtime, then go for it. I personally don't really struggle with this a lot. But either way, eating throughout midday is always the most optimal time to eat for cognitive function regardless of this. So just take this in mind, as this might be a thing that makes a noticeable impact. I personally haven't had any real opportunity to test this either, so take it from the research rather than me. Something I do know about, however, is sleep cycles. While you're asleep, your brain goes through a multi-stage process that it repeats about every hour and a half. The other parts of the cycle are important, but what you likely need the most of is the last stage, which is often called rapid eye movement sleep. And it's where a lot of the sleep time benefits get done. It's the stage that does a lot of good stuff for you, so try to make sure you get about 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep on the dot to maximize the cycles, because you generally want to wake up like right after rapid eye movement sleep has finished its ordeal. And I have personally found that when I maximize sleep cycles to the utmost of my ability, I wake up like fully refreshed, completely awake, and I'm not feeling all drowsy and whatnot. Typically, every night now, here and there, I'll miss like a few minutes due to miscalculations of time management, which sucks because me just simply getting that extra 15 or 20 minutes of laying down beforehand might have just saved me like the entire day. Who knows what today's gonna look like for me, because I laid down 25 minutes not in accordance with this whole thing, and I got probably 8.5 hours of sleep instead of 9. But if you're a teenager, you generally want 9. That is what I found to be the most optimal. So, a little also quick thing, call it rapid eye movement sleep because it is the stage in sleep where your eyes are just booking it in all sort of directions. So that's why it's called rapid eye movement sleep, is because it's a more active stage of sleep than all the others. Albeit that's all relative to how active sleep really is. So the last thing I found that you can adjust tonight and have a big impact on your sleep is your sleeping position. Your sleeping position, go figure, has a massive impact on your sleep. Sleeping on your stomach comes with multiple problems, but I specifically want to look at the benefits of sleeping on your back and maybe your left side. Sleeping on your back tends to make you fall asleep way faster, and sleeping on your side will reduce the risk of sleep apnea. So, which one should you go for? Simply just the one that would solve more problems for you. If you wake up in the morning, or worse, in the middle of the night, and you feel a shortness of breath, then sleep apnea might be a problem for you, so sleeping on your left side should alleviate some of the obstruction. If you're wondering why specifically the left side, then that's because, according to some resources, it has extra benefits that sleeping on the right side does not, namely helping with problems like heartburn, although keep in mind sources conflict a little on this, on which side is better. My advice is just try out each side for about a week at a time, granted that you don't fall under the other category. That category being the ones that can't fall asleep in the estimated 15 to 20 minutes that it should take. And keep in mind, you should really only be hacking this after you've made it to where sleep is a massive priority, because it should be your sleep for over a third of your life. At my stage, personally, over a third of your life. So you should at least make that good quality sleep that, will get you running and will optimize your performance throughout the day. If you have that struggle, though, after you remove lights from your surroundings an hour before bedtime, I'd recommend sleeping on your back and even trying it with the military method. Sleeping on your back is a surefire way to fall asleep, and the military method definitely proves this. It's a method towards sleeping that both I've mentioned before and still works wonders. Basically, you lie on your back and you work your way up your body, just relaxing every muscle in your body, starting with your legs and then moving all the way up to your facial muscles. After you've relaxed every muscle, just focus on breathing, and then every time a muscle tenses up again, just focus on putting it back into that relaxed state. I do this like every night where I need to fall asleep really quickly. I just lay asleep on my back, just as initially as stiff as a plank of wood. And then I start with my legs, and I work my way up my body, relaxing every single muscle, which the one that usually needs relaxing the most is the facial muscles. Just go up your body, relax all your muscles, and then after that, just inhale and exhale slowly. And you want to try and prolong your exhales a little bit longer, because focusing on exhales puts you into a more state of deep relaxation, much like non-sleep deep rest shows. So follow all of these tools, just try them out for the next couple weeks, and I can guarantee you your sleep will be way better than it is right now. Of course, I have to mention again, if you are watching YouTube videos or TV shows before you go to bed, or you go immediately from gaming to trying to fall asleep, it is going to be abysmal no matter what, and these techniques will make very little difference. You need to optimize light exposure before anything else. I feel like this is just the most important thing, because this is by far the thing that makes the biggest impact in my personal sleep hacking journey. This is by far, when that TV is on, I am way more awake than when this room is completely shut off and all the lights have been dimmed, or at the very least, I don't look into the light very often. Maybe the light can be on or whatnot, but if I'm looking towards the floor, I'm going to start feeling more drowsy than if I'm looking up at the light itself. So just keep this in mind. First, optimize the light exposure. Don't be looking at bright lights like an hour before bedtime. Don't be looking at lights from the hours of 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. because that is incredibly disruptive in everything. And after you've done all that and you wake up in the morning and you start still feeling a little drowsy and whatnot, go outside and try and get sunlight exposure as soon as possible. If the sun has already risen by the time you've woken up, then that's even better. We're in winter season right now, so there's only like 10 hours of sunlight, so the sun sets at 5 and it rises at like 7. So it's not very easy to do right now given my schedule, because I don't want to sleep for 14 hours. Or, go to sleep at like 10. I don't want to go to sleep super late just so that I can wake up later. Because I do most of my stuff in the morning right now anyway, because everyone else is asleep. And I have the most amount of time generally right now. It's just the quietest environment possible that I can get. Maximize light exposure. Plan out your sleep. Actually autistically plan out when you're going to sleep and when you're waking up. And then on top of all that, while you're going to sleep, you can try and maximize your sleeping position either by laying on your back or on your left side. All of this should very quickly, immediately, tonight and tomorrow night, you should see immediate results. I personally did. The difference between having good sleep and bad sleep is astonishing. You will be incredibly confused, I can promise you, about how you were ever able to make it based on the sleep that you were doing before. I don't know how I was still alive pulling all-nighters like every other night. But, I guess the human body is built to adapt. Hopefully you can make it to adapt to the better things instead of the worst things here soon.